I was always going to be doing music. I was always going to be doing music. That's all I know. It's been in my, there's videos of me you could look up on the internet of me as this big, singing and dancing, and I'm not good at anything else. And that's all I wanted to do, and I was just...
A 4-year-old boy is standing under stage lights that are too bright for someone his size. He doesn't know yet that he will one day sleep in an abandoned zoo, lose everything to gambling, and watch the woman he loved for 13 years disappear without a single public word. At 39, he finally told the truth. Before we get into it, if this kind of story moves you, take a second to subscribe to The Untold Story and hit the bell. We cover the real stories behind famous lives, the ones that go deeper than any headline ever will. Now let's get into it. Most people discover music somewhere around middle school. A song on the radio, a concert their parents took them to, a moment that cracks something open. Bruno Mars discovered music the way people discover breathing. He didn't choose it. It was simply already happening to him. He was 4 years old when he started performing 2 shows a night, 5 days a week, as part of his family's musical act in Waikiki. Not practicing, not rehearsing for someday, performing. In front of real crowds with real lights, wearing a tiny glitter jumpsuit that earned him the nickname Little Elvis, because his imitation of Elvis Presley's moves was so precise it stopped people cold. He took the stage for the Aloha Bowl halftime show in 1990 when he was 5 years old. Before he turned 10, he had performed nearly 1,000 shows. Think about what that does to a person. Most adults have never stood in front of a crowd once in their lives. This child had done it 1,000 times before he finished elementary school. When he was later asked what it felt like to rehearse for the Super Bowl halftime show, he said it felt like recess. That's not a line. That's the honest answer from someone who has been preparing for that moment since before he could read. But the stage gives and the stage takes. And what the stage was about to take from him was everything at once. When Bruno was 12 years old, his parents divorced. The family act ended, the lights went out, and what came next was nothing like the spotlight. There is a version of this story that gets cleaned up for magazine profiles. The charming rags to riches arc, the scrappy kid who made it. What actually happened was harder and stranger than any of that. Bruno found himself relocating between locations that most people would not consider homes at all after the family act broke apart following his parents' divorce. He slept in a yellow 1993 Cadillac with his father and brother. In Waikiki, they slept on rooftops. They also spent some time sleeping at an abandoned bird zoo, where peacocks shouted through the night. There was no proper restroom, and there was no real plan for the morning, according to Bruno's vague description. They snuck into hotel pools to shower. Dinner was often Spam musubi from a 7-Eleven. For 5 months, they had no electricity. He practiced guitar by moonlight because they couldn't afford amps. Kids at school noticed the thrift store close and did what kids do. He earned $75 a night impersonating Michael Jackson. Full costume, full performance, so he could pay for demo tapes and bus fare, which is the kind of detail that sounds almost romantic until you think about what it actually meant. A 12-year-old child performing for money in the dark, using the earnings to chase a future that had no guarantee of existing. He was selling happiness he didn't feel, and he was getting very, very good at it. That skill, the ability to perform joy with complete conviction while carrying something much heavier underneath, would become the defining quality of everything he would later build. Every arena show, every late-night television performance, every song recorded at 4 a.m. in a studio that smelled like tequila and ambition. The performance never stopped. It just found a bigger stage. However, the music labels offered him precisely what he didn't want when they eventually called in 2003. And the next decision he made would momentarily cost him everything. After hearing his demo in 2003, record labels issued a verdict that was supposed to be a chance. He ought to be the next Ricky Martin, they remarked. They requested that he sing in Spanish. Spanish was not Bruno's writing language. More significantly, he didn't want to fit into a label's definition of a Latin artist, which someone else had established. He said no. Then he built himself a new name from scratch. Bruno came from a professional wrestler named Bruno Sammartino, a figure of strength and spectacle. Mars came from something a girl once said to him, that he was so confident he must be from another planet. He liked that. He kept it. Bruno Mars, a name that belonged to nobody's existing category. In June 2003, he stepped off a plane in Los Angeles at 18 years old carrying $600, 3 demo CDs, and a luggage tag with his new name written on it. That is the entire inventory of everything he arrived with. His first year in Los Angeles has the power to either shatter a person or create something indestructible beneath them. He lived in 4 different places, including a small Koreatown flat he shared with 6 other men and a motel on Sunset that cost $40 per night. He pretended to have experience in order to get a job as a DJ on Van Nuys Boulevard. After 2 nights, he was sacked. In those 2 nights, he earned $75, which prevented his phone from being disconnected. He only ate 99-cent tacos from Jack in the Box for weeks over that summer. In February 2004, Motown offered him a deal, 3 pages long. He joked later that he had seen breakfast menus thicker than that. The label didn't know what to do with him, and 9 months later, they dropped him without releasing a single song. He had already called his family back home to tell them he'd made it. The humiliation of that phone call was something he never described in detail publicly, but it shaped everything that came after it. Because out of that failure came a friendship, and a promise made in the back of a beat-up Toyota that would eventually rewrite the history of popular music. The man he met in the rubble of that Motown disappointment was Philip Lawrence. Both dropped by the same label at the same time. Both broke, both unwilling to quit. They made each other a promise. They would write music that record labels couldn't ignore. By 2006, they were broke but precise. They wrote in the back of Philip's 1999 Toyota Corolla, parked outside a small Hollywood studio run by a man named Ari Levine who had gear they didn't have and ideas they could match. They paid him in burritos from 7-Eleven. When a chord or a beat felt right, someone would shout the same word, an inside joke that became a name, the Smeezingtons. They worked 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. Before they released a single song under that name, they had analyzed more than 1,000 existing hits, studying the architecture of what made something work and building their own version from the foundation up. One of Bruno's demo CDs was given to Mike Lynn, a Dr. Dre employee, by his sister Tiara. The voice sounded weird, too high, like something processed, and Mike was on the verge of throwing it away. Bruno then struck a note at 43 seconds in, causing Mike to halt and replay the audio. He took Bruno to Record One Studios for a meeting. There was no offer. However, seeing the perfect person in Los Angeles can be sufficient to sustain you for an additional year. To avoid eviction, they sold a song they had written for themselves, Lost, to Menudo for $20,000, just enough. Then they wrote the chorus for Flo Rida's Right Round. It hit #1. Sold 636,000 downloads in its first week, a digital record at the time. Then came Nothing on You for B.O.B., another hit, for someone else. By the time Bruno released his own music in 2010, songs he had helped write had already sold more than 15 million downloads for other artists. He had spent years making other people famous. The question no one could answer yet was whether anyone would ever return the favor. His solo debut dropped in May 2010, and almost nobody noticed. The EP was called It's Better If You Don't Understand, 13 minutes long, 4 songs. By the end of 2011, it had sold 27,000 copies in the United States. A ripple, a suggestion of something, almost nothing. 5 months later, he released Doo-Wops and Hooligans, and everything changed simultaneously. Built on a budget of $70,000 with no borrowed samples, the album went 7 times platinum in the US and crossed 15 million global sales by 2020. In the UK, it stayed on the official albums chart for 400 consecutive weeks, nearly 8 years. Longer than Abbey Road, longer than Thriller. Just the Way You Are entered the Billboard Hot 100 on August 7, 2010. It reached #1 8 weeks later, stayed on the chart for 48 weeks, and went 13 times platinum. In the US alone, it sold 7 million downloads, placing it among the top 25 digital tracks ever released. Next was Grenade. 559,000 downloads were made during its peak week, which at the time was the 8th highest weekly total in music history. In 15 nations, it reached the top spot. It peaked at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 3 times between January and March of 2011. In the history of the chart, only 5 songs have ever achieved that. He had sold over 5 million copies of each of his songs in the US by March 2011. Only Lady Gaga had accomplished that before him. He was 25 years old. During his inaugural season, he received 7 Grammy nominations. Since Stevie Wonder in 1974, this man is the youngest to win Best Male Pop Vocal Performance. He was listed as one of Billboard's top Hot 100 artists. He was crowned the 2011 best-selling worldwide artist by the IFPI, surpassing Adele. Locked Out of Heaven in October 2012 entered the charts at #34 and climbed to #1 in 11 weeks. It stayed there for 6 consecutive weeks and eventually reached 10 times platinum with 1.8 billion Spotify streams. It made him the first solo male artist since Bobby Vinton in 1964 to score 4 Hot 100 number ones in his first 2 years, a record that Michael Jackson in his first 2 years had not broken. Every record pointed back to the same origin, a boy who had been rehearsing for this since before he could read, 1,000 shows before age 10, moonlight guitar practice, peacocks screaming in the dark. But even as the awards stacked up and the numbers became incomprehensible, something behind the scenes was quietly building towards a story that the music industry couldn't explain away with a press release. On March 15, 2024, a single broadcast changed the conversation around Bruno Mars overnight. News Nation aired a segment, no named sources, no documented evidence, claiming that Bruno owed approximately $50 million to MGM Resorts after accumulating gambling debt and that he was working it off through his residency at Park MGM. There was no corroboration. There didn't need to be. The claim was too perfectly constructed for the internet to ignore. Within hours, the number was unquestionably replicated on gossip blogs. There were numerous posts on Reddit asserting that MGM almost owned him. Shannon Sharpe told his audience that he had heard that Bruno had once lost $17 million at a blackjack table in one night. The hashtag Bruno broke was making the rounds 2 days later. The term Bruno Mars 50 million debt was showing up in more than 4 million Google searches. It all stemmed with a single unnamed claim that was broadcast. The reason it spread so fast wasn't irresponsibility, it was plausibility. Years prior, Bruno had openly acknowledged that he had begun gambling before reaching legal adulthood and had once lost everything in a game of poker. High rollers frequently wager $50,000 on a single blackjack hand in Las Vegas. Without anyone noticing, the total would approach 50 million if someone at that level lost that much 1,000 times over a number of years. The fact that the math wasn't impossible made it uncomfortable. Add his reported income, approximately $1.5 million per show, roughly $90 million per year, and the image that formed was the one the internet most wanted to believe. A modern-day Sinatra, living and losing fortunes under the same neon roof that made him famous. MGM reacted quickly. Instead of using ambiguous business terminology, make a clear statement to Billboard and Forbes. There are 2 words that cut through everything: debt-free. They went on to say that Bruno was one of the best performers in the world, and that their relationship was based on respect for one another. Although their motivation wasn't totally altruistic, a story about their biggest star drowning in debt was a liability issue as much as a reputational issue. The denial was specific enough and presented through reliable enough channels for Variety and other major outlets to run it without reservation. Wall Street didn't move. MGM stock held. Bruno's response was something different entirely. On April 12, 2024, during his show at Park MGM, he looked out at a packed room and said, completely straight-faced, "Ever since they said I'm on the hook for 50 mil, my phone been dry. Where my friends at when I'm up?" The crowd erupted. That moment was clipped, shared, and watched 6.8 million times on TikTok within a single day. In January 2025, when Spotify announced he had reached 150 million monthly listeners, he reposted it with one caption: "Keep streaming. I'll be out of debt in no time." 2 weeks after that, he appeared on stage with Rosé at SoFi Stadium and opened with "Almost Out of Debt." Every joke stripped the story of its power. Every laugh was a reminder that the man at the center of the rumor understood exactly how to make this narrative serve him rather than consume him. The $50 million debt story became, functionally, the best free marketing his residency had ever received. But while the world debated casino math and anonymous sources, something far more personal had already quietly disappeared from his life, and almost nobody caught it until it was already gone. In the spring of 2011, before the Grammys and the world tours and the name that would become genuinely inescapable, Bruno Mars walked into a hotel restaurant in New York City and sat down across from a woman he had never met. Her name was Jessica Caban. She had just come from a modeling audition. He had just finished a show. They locked eyes across the room for 40 minutes. He didn't move. Then finally, he walked over. They talked until 2 a.m., long after the chairs were stacked on the tables and the lights had been cut down to closing level. Within a year, she had left everything and moved across the country to be with him. She slept on an air mattress in his apartment while he toured the world. They built something slowly and quietly. By 2014, a house in Studio City, a dog named Geronimo, a life that existed almost entirely outside of public view. They walked the red carpet 3 times in their 13 years together. 3. In an interview, he referred to her as my rock just once before shifting the topic. He refused to elaborate when asked about When I Was Your Man, saying it was like bleeding on tape. It was assumed that it was composed at a difficult time with Jessica. It was never verified by him. The music simply existed there, between what he did and what he guarded. In that same period, the music became the most extraordinary of his life. Leave the Door Open dropped at midnight in a packed Las Vegas theater. Bruno stood under a single spotlight, said Silk Sonic is real, and the room went completely silent before the first note. The song hit #1 in 4 weeks, stayed there for 2 months, and accumulated 3 billion Spotify streams. At the Grammys, he and Anderson .Paak performed in white tuxedos with 18-string players and Bootsy Collins sitting like royalty on a velvet throne. They swept Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Best R&B Performance. Lady Gaga's Die With a Smile was recorded at 4:12 a.m., just one shot. Before the session, Bruno had just smashed a bottle of tequila against the wall of the studio. In the last track, you can hear the glass shattering at 3:18. He did not remove it. He claimed that it gave the song a genuine feel. At its height, it generated about $1 million every day in publishing, broke 27.4 million streaming records on its first day, dominated charts for 18 weeks in a row, and at the 2025 Grammy Awards, Bruno's 11-second note earned him the nickname Human Saxophone. Before the concert ended, it was the top trending item on Twitter. E.T. with Rosé of Blackpink began as a 9-second guitar riff posted to TikTok. 42 million people watched it in 12 hours. The full song entered the Billboard Hot 100 at #3, the biggest K-pop female duet debut in chart history. The music video hit 100 million YouTube views in 19 hours. By August 2025, it had accumulated 3 billion streams. At the peak of all of it, something was disappearing quietly in the background. In late 2024, Jessica's anniversary posts vanished from her social media. Bruno flew to Tokyo alone. He was photographed wearing the gold necklace she had given him years earlier, turned backward, so her initials faced inward and couldn't be seen. In January 2025, a fan left a comment on one of Jessica's posts asking directly if she and Bruno had split. She replied with 15 words, "I will always celebrate and be happy for all of his continued achievements. Cheering from afar." The internet caught fire within hours. She had spent Christmas with her family in San Juan. He had played New Year's Eve in Las Vegas. It was their first December apart in more than a decade. Sources described them as living separate lives. Others said he had tried to repair things but had extended his residency instead. They never confirmed a breakup. She still follows him on Instagram. He still likes her posts about her fashion line. They still co-own the house in Studio City. Some reports claim she had been seen backstage at one of his May shows. No photographs emerged. The silence between two people who once talked until 2 a.m. has its own particular weight. It doesn't need to be explained to be understood. At 39, Bruno Mars has broken more records than most artists accumulate in a lifetime. The sold-out residencies where single tickets cost $6,000 and fans still pay it. The vinyl debut that outsold every R&B act in 30 years. The neon and the confetti and the voice that can hold a note long enough to make a stadium full of people forget to breathe. But what he confirmed at 39, not in one statement, not in one interview, but across a decade of carefully chosen jokes and backward necklaces and songs recorded at 4 a.m., is that every triumph he has is built on something that hurt first. The boy who performed to peacocks in an abandoned zoo. The teenager who played guitar by moonlight because they couldn't afford electricity. The man who called his family back home to say he'd made it and then had to call again to say he hadn't. The person who spent years making other people famous while eating 99-cent tacos in a city that didn't know his name yet. None of it disappeared when the records came. It just went somewhere the cameras couldn't reach. What he left behind isn't just music. It's proof that the specific, stubborn decision to keep going, through the zoo, through the Cadillac, through the Motown rejection, through the rumors, through the silence, produces something that no algorithm and no label and no headline can fully account for. Which part of Bruno's story hit you hardest? The abandoned zoo, the gambling rumors, or the silence about Jessica? Drop it in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story stayed with you, make sure you check out our video on the untold story of Michael Jackson's final years, because that story carries the same weight as everything you just heard, right here on The Untold Story. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story that deserves to be told.